Hi. Impressive carrying skills, right? I got some Bud Lights for us. So, I kept hearing about this thing called March Madness, and I thought we were all just having a hectic month, but it turns out it has something to do with sports. And I'm not sure exactly which sport, but either way, it's a cause to celebrate. This month, I celebrated my day 365 of womanhood, and Bud Light sent me possibly the best gift ever, a can with my face on it. Check out my Instagram story to see how you can enjoy March Madness with Bud Light and maybe win some money too. Love ya! Cheers!
There it was, folks, the partnership that sank an entire iconic beer brand. And if you thought the Bud Light boycott was winding down, well, no. In fact, as of this week, Bud Light has lost its title as America's top-selling beer. For 2 decades, Bud Light has held that coveted spot. But since the brand decided to partner with a man who pretends to be a prepubescent teenage girl, it has been hemorrhaging sales, and now a Mexican beer, Modelo, has come for the throne and taken it. And while some of us are celebrating the effectiveness of the message we've sent to the brand, it does have real-life implications for the innocent employees that have been hit hard. My next guest fits that description because he's worked for Anheuser-Busch for 10 years before he was recently laid off. He's speaking out to me exclusively, but in order to keep this conversation raw and unfiltered, he's asked to keep his identity secret. But my team has verified through pay stubs that he was in fact an employee of the company, and I've got a lot of questions, so let's get into it. Sir, it's great to have you.
Thanks for having me, Tommy.
So I want to start at the beginning. Let's go back to that clip I played, of course, of Dylan Mulvaney. I mean, there was a lot of outrage when that clip first surfaced, but I don't think anybody expected the fallout, the backlash that we are currently seeing because of that one partnership. When you saw that ad as an employee of this company, were you thinking this was going to be trouble, danger, bad news for your brand?
I didn't think it would be as aggressive as it is now.
Right. I also want to know, because you've been an employee of that company for 10 years, and this isn't the first time that Anheuser-Busch or Bud Light has done something for pride or for gay celebrations. I mean, this isn't like the first time this has happened. But what do you think it was, as an employee that has seen this evolve over the last several years? What do you think it was about that Dylan Mulvaney partnership that really sent people over the edge? And were your fellow employees, were they saying anything about it behind closed doors?
Yes. So I'm in Houston, and pretty much majority of the employees here are not supportive of this. We feel that it's the agenda of sexualizing children, and that's really what the problem is. That's what we don't like. So most of us, including the plant managers, are not happy with what happened because we don't support that. I mean, we have no problem with pride and people and their beliefs, but with the narrative of things that are being forced down everybody's throat with the sexualizing of children, that's where the issue lies. And majority of the people that work at the brewery feel that and agree with that sentiment.
Right. Well, I can imagine that there are a lot of opinions in a company, in a brand that large. But again, this kind of goes back to what were the executives thinking when they were doing this? And then, of course, after the fact, we had a video surface of a marketing executive saying that Bud Light wanted to move away from the fratty appearance of just college kids and men. And I mean, that almost made it worse. When you're behind closed doors, when you're talking to plant managers, when you're having meetings, when you're with the team, was there an acknowledgement of any of this, an acknowledgement of the situation, the boycott, and then the doubling down about moving away from the fratty image? What were those conversations like when all this started to kick off?
So everybody was upset, including management. So every brewery has a plant manager that answers to corporate. And there seems to be a separation there because what corporate's doing is not reflective of what even the plant managers want. And they themselves, we would have these meetings, and nobody's happy about it. Everybody thinks it was a very bad idea, obviously. And, the sales and everything shows that. So, they expressed the fact that they were shocked. Why would they do this? What were they thinking? Especially now, this is the worst. It's like the worst timing yet the best timing if a company were to try to change the way it operates from a corporate level. So that's just my opinion, and many of us are talking about that, like they planned it in a way, like a strategic destruction of Bud Light.
Okay, let's get into that because that's very interesting to me to hear. Now, we know that Anheuser-Busch has been bought by InBev, which owns a lot of brands, a lot of companies, has a lot under the umbrella. And that's when things kind of started to shift in a little bit more woke way. But you're telling me that you think that Bud Light knew this Dylan Mulvaney partnership was going to be a disaster, watched it become a disaster, and then almost sat back and let it happen because in some way the tanking of that brand would allow them to rejuvenate it somehow or resurrect it, reorder it. What do you think? Explain that theory that you have to me because that's the first time I've really heard it.
So when the company was bought over by InBev, a lot of things changed. When it was owned by Anheuser-Busch, it's an American brand, and one of the, I don't know if it's the only companies that pays extremely well with benefits, things of that nature. When InBev bought it over, they didn't like that. So they've been trying to get rid of many benefits of working for an American company like Anheuser-Busch, and they just can't because we have a strong union. Bud Light has been failing for many years. We've talked about that for many years. The numbers have just, little by little deteriorated. And it feels like they said, let's put this nail in the coffin. And now we have a lot of layoffs, a lot of loss in production. It would be easy for them to restructure, let's say, pay or contracts, which we have a contract coming up, in a way that, well, we don't have the business anymore. We're forced to change these things, and that's kind of what everybody feels like. Like it's too obvious that they would just mistakenly, do this and not expect these repercussions. I mean, anybody could tell you what was going to happen, but I don't know.
That's really wild that you're telling me that. That's the first time I've heard that this could actually be intentional, that they want to get rid of some employees, that they maybe want to cut some benefits, renegotiate a union contract so that they're allowing the brand to fail so they can blame it on that instead of just laying people off or instead of pissing off the union and union members. That's very, very interesting. And if true, manipulative and diabolical. I guess that's what happens when you let a giant umbrella company purchase an American brand. Things go to hell. But let's talk about the production because you mentioned that. Let's talk about what it's been like. I know that you were recently laid off, as in the last couple of weeks. But prior to that, this has been going on since mid-March with this controversy, this, I guess, unofficial boycott. What has production looked like? We've heard a lot of stories about they can't give away the stuff, that people are sending it back to the breweries. What have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees?
So majority of the pay that we make is on overtime, which is the weekend work. We get paid, time and a half, double time. Everyone there makes three figures. So I'm sorry, six figures. That's, it's a very well paying job. The plant runs 24/7. The only time it does not run is on Christmas and on Thanksgiving. For the last 6 to 8 weekends, there has been no production, meaning we have 10 lines that run constantly, 5 can lines, 4 bottle lines, and the keg line. They have all been off, no weekend work. And that's what I tell you, that's unheard of. We've never seen it before. We've lost about 900,000 barrels of beer at the end of April. And that equates to, every barrel is 31 gallons of beer. So the Houston brewery alone lost 200,000 barrels of beer of production. So there's no work. There's no beer to make because no one's ordering it. And the beer that's sitting there, they have to send it back because it's, it gets old. You can't sell old beer. So, it's really taken a huge hit on pretty much every employee there. When you have 7 people running the brewery on a weekend, that's never happened. It's just unheard of.
So let's go back to your union and the advocacy. Has there been anybody, any union representatives or anybody that has represented the workers to corporate saying, hey, you guys got to do something about this. You've got to get the customers back. You got to advocate for your employees to get us back to work, to prevent these layoffs from happening. Has that conversation happened?
Yeah. So from the plant manager point of view, I know that they've done their best to at least keep some of us on, but they can only do so much. The corporate created a plan, like a marketing plan, to try to revive all this. With I'm sure you've seen commercials out in the woods or out in the fields
Right.
of that kind of stuff. Trying to bring that American theme, but I think it's too late. It's not working. Our sales went up a little bit and they're back down. So meaning this July 4th, there's no work. And
And
it's July 4th weekend.
that's got to be a busy time of year for Bud Light
The
and any beer.
busiest.
Yeah, July 4th, and you're telling me that there's really no plan to even ramp things up ahead of that very busy beer drinking weekend?
Well, they can't because no one's ordering it. So if there's no orders, there's nothing to make. And that's what we see is a decline in orders. So, if we have a warehouse that has 1 million pallets of beer and we're down to 200,000 on 4th of July, that's like apocalypse.
Wow. So when they laid you off a couple of weeks ago, did they tell you that they plan to bring you back? Did they acknowledge that it's because of this unofficial boycott? What was that conversation like?
Yes, I mean they've been preparing us for this, and saying, look, the work isn't getting better. We don't have as much work, as much orders. We can only hold you so much until we lay you off or furlough you or just not put you on the schedule. They're doing different things for different people depending on seniority and things of that nature, but it's 100% because of this situation, which they acknowledge, and they tell us, once things ramp up, we'll start bringing everyone back in, which is the hope, because nobody wants to lose their job. But
Right.
I mean, on one end, I agree with the boycotts because I have children and I see what's happening, but it's we suffer because we have veterans that work there, American citizens, your neighbors, and we're losing our jobs. So it's a double-edged sword. Like, we want to
Right.
support, but at the same time, I don't,
Right.
I lost my job.
It's hard, and that's the part of this that I think is so hard for conservatives because we know that the workers are not responsible for this. We know that you guys have no blame on your shoulders for this. But what we're waiting for is for this company, for these executives to take some accountability for what they did and say, listen, we've always supported Pride. We apologize for having a partnership with a man who pretends to be a teenage girl to push beer on people. If they would acknowledge that explicitly, I firmly believe that all of this would be over because I don't think that the conservative base wants to boycott Bud Light forever. I think that there is forgiveness in our hearts and our pocketbooks, but we need that acknowledgement. So for you, who are you most angry at? Are you angry at the boycotters? Are you angry at your company? Are you angry at your union? I mean, you lost your job over this. This has got to be something that really burns your ass.
I'm angry at the company in the corporate level, just because they had to have known this was going to happen, and they let it happen. I mean, unless no one was paying attention, I mean, they plan for all this stuff. They have 100 people on staff that literally sit there and monitor all this stuff. So I'm pretty sure they had the conversation and somebody said, all right, let her rip and see what happens, But
Right.
as for why, it's only speculation. But, from previous years and the way they try to take away the way the company has run in the past to now, it's not the same company it was when I started.
Right.
It was a really good company. I mean, you can see the difference of American families working there to now it's just the bare bone, go to work, do your job, go home, and it's just not the same.
Wow. from a company that wants to be woke and love everyone. They're actually treating their employees like crap even before this whole thing went down with Dylan Mulvaney. That's very, very interesting, and that's what happens when these American companies, they cave and they get bought out. You never know what's going to happen, and unfortunately for you and for the rest of us, it's been incredibly detrimental to a brand that a lot of us have loved and supported over the years. I appreciate you being so open and so honest with me. I apologize to you for you having to go through this, for you having to be the collateral damage in all of this. I hope that they make an apology. I hope that they right their wrong, and I hope that they bring you back, and I hope that things are better for you. But God bless you, and God bless all of your fellow employees and those that have been unfortunately laid off. Please let them know that you guys are part of the silent majority just like we are, and we got to let our voices be heard, but that doesn't mean we don't feel for you and doesn't mean that we don't care about you and your families. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Tommy. Thank you so much. God bless.
Thank you.